Heavenly greetings. It's been a while, but as you may have noticed, we are grieving the Hengom Chief David Kamuhab. May his soul rest in peace. And yes, this morning I woke up and I realized it's actually this weekend that we have to lay him to rest, and a lot was going through my mind today. And part of the things that I had to do in honor is whenever somebody of that magnitude passes away, there needs to be a level of respect that is accorded to them. And part of my own initiatives was, okay, let me set up a candle with his picture in my office, and those few days that are left honor the great man that he was. And also, it's a cultural thing to be dressed ladylike whenever an elder has passed on. And even though it's not visible in the workspace where I am, I decided this week I'll do my best to be culturally adorned. And we call it more, I cannot say modest per se, but it's more like you are covered, your head is covered, your overall body is covered, you are dressed in a skirt or a dress, that type of dressing. So that is what I will personally be doing this week. So in honor of my chief, a lot of people wonder, who is this marginalized communities? Like, the type of questions that come out are, marginalized by who? From where? From what? And the typical responses that we would have as marginalized communities is anger. Ne? But reflecting back at the character of our late chief, I tell you, that man was smart. Eh? That man was smart, and the type of Afrikaans he spoke. That was savor Afrikaans. Ne? The first time I attended an event together with him and the other chiefs is when we were dealing with the white people on indigenous communities in Namibia. And I remember I was still at university, and because we were the student leaders of the students that are funded under the program, under the education program of marginalized communities, me and my friend, may her soul rest in peace, Helena Afrikaner, we were invited by Tate Kamatuka. Tate Kamatuka was the deputy director. Yeah, I think he was the deputy director back then of this program. And we were invited and we went. Hey! So the first day, it was, I believe it was under UNDC. Oh, I'm not sure, but it was a UN agency. Ne? And the first day it was the stakeholders, it was the NGOs, and then the second day it was the traditional chiefs. And I went there, I greeted him, and he was like, "Oh, you are here at university?" I was like, "No, good." The type of Afrikaans my chief spoke, man, and he was those people, ne, that thinks before he speaks. Yeah, and everything he speaks, they after makes sense. Ne? So the connection between the head, the brain, and the tongue has connected. It was very good. So I was like, in honor of Chief David Kamuha, let me explain who are we? Who is the marginalized communities in Namibia that people keep referring to? Who marginalized them? Who marginalized who? And even when we speak about indigenous people, people are like, we are all indigenous, ne? And it's things that we don't need to fight over. It's things that we can actually discuss and help each other understand, because the primary objective of cultural diversity and tolerance is getting to understand where the next person comes from, why they are the way they are, what contributed to that. And this will help you acknowledge their existence and respect their cultural being, even if you don't understand it. That is the beauty and essence of cultural diversity. So, who are the marginalized communities? In Namibia, as per the government framework, those who are regarded as marginalized communities in Namibia is the Overtue, the Ovachimba, and the San. In other words, they are also called Bushmen, but Bushman is labeled as a derogatory name. So they are called San, S-A-N. How did this come about? I believe back then, under, if I'm not mistaken, under the leadership of Dr. Libertina Madila, assessments were done to assess the livelihoods of the San people. And after these assessments were done, it was realized that compared to the general public out there, in terms of education statistics, in terms of employment statistics, in terms of their economic standing, they were far from the average general societal standing. Because a lot of San people actually resist modernization, and therefore they would continuously hold on to their nomadic lifestyle, because that is actually who they are. And in assessing and identifying the lacks and the needs of San people, similar tribes were also recognized, which is the Ovachimba and the Ovatue, because their lifestyles are also nomadic. And part of what influenced these actions on behalf of Namibia is Namibia as a state is a member to the United Nations. And as a member under the United Nations, there are treaties, conventions that Namibia has signed, or that Namibia is a member to, or that Namibia has voted in favor to. And some of these conventions actually places an obligation on Namibia to invest and ensure the well-being, the reintegration of indigenous people. Now, in the international context, marginalized communities are known as indigenous people. Ne? Some of these treaties or conventions is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. This declaration, I believe, is under the ILO, the International Labour Organization. Some of the other conventions of the UN were under such obligations towards the indigenous people are under is the International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Some of these conventions have specific articles or sections that speak to indigenous communities. And because Namibia is a member to these conventions, Namibia has to report every third, every fourth, every fifth year on the human rights, the different human rights that they have that they have rectified. You understand? So apart from reporting on all the other issues relating to these conventions that they have signed, they must also report on the status of indigenous communities that live within Namibia. And that is why I believe uh, there was a division for marginalized communities created. This division for marginalized communities was previously under the office of the vice president, and then it was moved to the office of the president, and then after that I think it came back to the office of the vice president, and then at some point it was together under the office of the president but under Ministry of Gender, and now it is back under the office of the president, under the office of the vice president. So why the specific people? And I must also mention indigenous people all over the world. If I must explain, maybe very in layman terms, is people that are regarded as the first inhabitants of a specific area. So in other countries, it's the native Indians and so forth. And in African countries, it is the San, it is the Bushmen. There are other tribes as well. Because when you read history is very clear as to who were the first inhabitants. However, in Namibia, it is so contentious that people want to argue and debate over this, fully knowing very well that the San, history backs this up, that the San are the first inhabitants. However, I don't want to fight and contend over that. My whole intention of doing this is to educate the next person that really wants to learn. So because Namibia has signed these conventions, Namibia has to report what they have done. What is the status? How many individuals from marginalized communities, indigenous, have been reintegrated? How many have received an education? Currently, what is their education level when you look at it? So the term marginalized, I don't know how they came up with that term. However, what I do know is many of us don't like the term, but we understand the backdrop, how it came about. And it was simply to say, these are persons that are marginalized. They were previously marginalized. If you really know indigenous people, marginalized people, you will understand that they are peaceful people. They don't like problems. Ne? We are peaceful people. And because we are peaceful people, if we are settled in a specific area and you come and occupy our space, and we try to tell you this is our space, please move, and you insist on being there, we will move deeper and deeper into the bush. And that is what happened. That is exactly what happened. So there are different San clans in Namibia. You have the Haingom, you have the Kung, you have the Yungwansi, you have the, I'm not sure their exact wording, but they are that side of Katima. Please forgive me if I'm wrong, but some people call them the Paraquinas. I'm really not sure, but please forgive me if I label them wrongly. But they are in the Katima Mulilo Cheto, in the Cheto area. They are in the Cheto area. Please forgive me if I don't. But some people call them the Paraquinas. They are a little bit dark in complexion, but they are also San. And then you also find the I see that side of Hobabis. And there's also another subgroup of the Nkungu. There are those that write it Kung, and then there are those that write it Kung. Yeah. I think there are 7 or 8 sub-tribes. Right now that I'm speaking about it from top of my head, I've forgotten some. But during my time serving as a student leader, I was doing my ups and downs in Namibia to consult traditional TAs of marginalized communities. So you have these different groups, different clans in Namibia, and they don't speak the same San language. The language that the Nkung speak is different from the language that the Yungwansi speak. The language that the Hengom speak is different from the language that the Isis speak. Ne? It's different. They are San, S-A-N, but they speak different languages. Their cultural norms might be a little bit similar, but they speak different languages. Those are the San. Ne? And because they are peaceful people, they don't like the noise that comes with modernization, because modernization brings about so many rapid changes that it brings about the risk of losing your cultural identity. Ne? So yes, that is how they kept moving deep and deep and deep and deep into the bush. Now, as you know, as they keep moving deep and deep into the bush, the problem is the children that are born do not attend school. As the world becomes modern, they cannot live the nomadic lifestyle that they want, because now it is illegal to be out there hunting. Ne? It's most illegal. But their lifestyle has been nomadic. So now their nomadic lifestyle has a clash with civilization. So some sort of a common ground had to be reached. And that is where you saw where Dr. Lepetin Amadila came up with the nomadic schools. There's another term they used for the schools. And the schools went around with them as they moved, which was a brilliant idea because it actually complements their lifestyle. While complementing and preserving their lifestyle, it educates the children. And apart from ensuring that the little ones receive an education and don't miss up on education, the educational program was also brought about. And more students started attending high school, NAMCO, and the various institutions that are funded under this program, including UNAM, NAST. I'm actually a product of that program. When I first did my diploma, I sought funding, and eventually NASA funded me the first 2, because I did a diploma in law, and NASA funded my diploma. And after the diploma, I actually got a scholarship from the Law Society to do my LLB. But because I was now staying in the hostel, the scholarship, I think, it was a bursary. It was only covering the tuition cost. And my parents could not cover the rest. And so I had to now seek alternative financial assistance to do my degree. And that is how I ended up writing to the division division of marginalized communities, and that's how they ended up funding my degree. So I'm a product of that program. My motivational speaking started there because they took me to areas. They have a back to school campaign that they host every year, and I went there. Helena was also part of this program. So they would take students that are funded by the program to go and inspire the learners from marginalized communities to say, I'm also a product. I was where we were. So please study and be funded. So yes, that is the marginalized communities of Namibia. In actual fact, what I do know is there is change underway in the term that's going to be used in naming them, and I think the term is indigenous minorities because of the contention surrounding the word indigenous. It's indigenous minorities. So I believe one day when the white paper is passed, this term will be used, which I think would be good because, yes, I understand marginalized from the mainstream economy, marginalized from mainstream education. Yes. But part of what I would experience is I remember when I went to go and get my award letter before starting with my degree, somebody asked me, "You don't look marginalized." And I was highly offended. I was offended because we don't necessarily need to look like our problems. Ne? I might not look like my problems, but trust me, if I take you to my family, the actual son, you will see that I'm actually a bushman. Ne? I don't mind that term for myself. So, part of educating each other is also teaching each other what to say to each other and what not to say to each other. So, if I tell you I am Beverly Silas-Garas and I am a son, a Hingom son, I'm from the marginalized community, I am introducing myself. I am from that clan. Ne? I am from that clan. Whether I'm still marginalized, whether I have integrated, that is a story on its own. Educationally, yes, I have a degree. I've integrated. So, why marginalized communities? What is special about them? As I explained, this convention places a duty on Namibia as a member state to ensure the continuous investment in the specific communities, because Namibia actually has to report, and funding is also availed to Namibia. I am not oblivious to the fact that there are other communities, other tribes that are equally impoverished, that are battling with poverty. I have seen with my own eyes how other people are struggling. Colleagues, if you go deep there in the villages, in the northern parts of Namibia, whether it's the central northern part, the northern part to the west or to the east, I have seen poverty. So it is not to disregard and say that there are no other Namibians apart from marginalized communities that are suffering. There are honestly other tribes that are suffering. Yeah? And we are not oblivious to that. However, because there is a special mandate placed on Namibia as a member state, and because of this special mandate, there are specific technical and monetary assistances rendered to Namibia as a nation to advance the cause of indigenous communities. Namibia has to make special provisions, to make special policies to provide and cater to them. And that is how this positive discrimination came about. So today, I just wanted to explain that. It is not to say the San are special No. It is because of the treaties that Namibia has signed that they are obligated to fulfill the terms of and conditions of these treaties. In the same way, the various United Nations charters, declarations, treaties, conventions also places obligations on Namibia to carry out and ensure that the basic human rights of the general citizens in Namibia are fulfilled. And we as Namibia report on this. We report on these various obligations, not just indigenous communities, but also the general populace. But today, I just wanted to zoom in on indigenous people, which in Namibia are called marginalized communities. And these communities, according to the Cabinet Directive, is the San, the Ovachimba, the Ovatue. Those three. But in actual fact, I don't know how we will one day solve this issue of indigenous, not indigenous, and whatnot. But in honor of my chief, I just wanted to explain this indigenous my marginalized community story. I wanted to explain towards that. But I will make another video just explaining and narrating my journey as an indigenous minority child. I will explain my journey.